For those who, like me, are passionate about the Incas, Peru is a paradise. It's home to their ancient capital, Cusco, with the famous temple fortress of Sacsayhuaman, founded in the 15th century. And of course, deeper in the Andes, the legendary imperial palace of Machu Picchu, dated from the same period. These two sites hide almost no remaining secrets from archaeologists, but more than 100 miles away is another gem of Inca architecture. And though it's less known, it mobilizes a great deal of their attention. Choquequirao.
Fabuleux, hein?
It's fabulous. One of my good friends, a Peruvian archaeologist, is from this region, and he says that here it's impossible to take a bad photo. And he's right. The landscape's fabulous. Behind me, the Cordillera Vilcabamba mountain range that overlooks the Apurimac Canyon. And there in the background, gripping the top of the mountain, is the site of Choquequirao. I always wanted to see this site, all the more fascinating because it's so hard to get to. Overlooking one of the deepest canyons in the world, Choquequirao is perched at 10,000 feet in altitude. In the 15th century, the Incas literally sliced off a piece of this mountaintop to build this fantastic architectural ensemble. Why deploy so much energy to build a site in such a remote corner of the Andes? Archaeologists seem to have finally found an explanation for this unlikely location. Getting to Choquequirao is a physical test. It's a 2-day walk up through this breathtakingly steep landscape. The expedition must be well prepared. Today, I am fortunate to be accompanying the French archaeologist Thibaut Centenois, who is participating in a Franco-Peruvian research project on the history of Choquequirao. Every time you come to Choquequirao, it demands such a large expedition, you take all this with you?
That's how it is because Choquequirao is 12 miles from the nearest village. There's no electricity, no telephone.
So you have to plan everything, your housing, food, supplies, batteries.
Yes, all the logistics, the mules and our camp. An old-fashioned method, like we're early 20th century archaeologists.
Oh, I heard everywhere. I can tell you I feel the altitude. You have to really earn Choquequirao. After a 20-hour hike and a night of camping, we still haven't arrived. We set up camp at a distance from the site.
Cheers. I'm exhausted.
Me too. Fantastic climb, though.
You can say that again. We just climbed one of the deepest canyons of the Andes.
It's a change from my usual site, practically on the beach. Its highest point is the Sun Temple at 150 feet. The next morning, wow, I'm really amazed. I finally discovered Choquequirao. Its monumental architecture spans over 150 acres. An incredible field for archaeologists to study. I recognize the large rectangular style buildings typical of Incas. But why build this monumental complex on this precise spot?
Let's go.
Okay.
We'll go this way.
Beneath thick vegetation west of the site, archaeologists found a first answer. They uncovered buildings that looked nothing like Inca architecture. They're circular.
Careful of scree, Peter.
Okay.
Hola chicos, ¿cómo están?
Hi, guys. How's it going? Going good? Great job taking away the vegetation. The wall was completely covered. Now we can see it well. Thanks a lot for your help. Did you notice the curvature of the wall?
Yes, it's clearly circular.
Only the uphill wall was preserved because it supports the slope. The downhill wall where the slope is collapsed because this house was abandoned about 500 years ago.
And what has it revealed?
This was housing, homes. They have dirt floors with the remains of domestic activities. Essentially broken pottery, but also food remains, small bones of camelid animals like llamas, since they were a main staple of their diet. And also some small seeds now in the form of coal.
That you dated?
We dated their occupation here as slightly pre-Inca.
Can we conclude that there was a pre-Inca village here, and that the Incas imposed themselves here and built this great site that we see here now?
Yes, what's interesting is that when the Incas arrived, the village was obviously abandoned, because on the 250 acres, all we find is 6 or 7 pre-Inca circular structures.
The Incas would have thus attached to their empire this territory that was already occupied by people living in these homes. But what did they come here to build? A new city? An administrative center? The archaeologists conducting research here came to answer this very question. Thibault is a specialist in landscape archaeology, and he studies the relationships between the natural environment and the architecture. With his drone, he makes very accurate readings from hundreds of photos taken from all angles. With this photogrammetry, archaeologists now have a 3D model of the site and its architecture, ideal for studying the planning and orientation of the buildings in the landscape. With its large platform, its agricultural terraces, its organization into 2 districts above and below, one might think of a city, and yet...
Peter, here we are on the central square of Lower Choquequirao.
Lower?
Yes, there's an urban plan with 2 neighborhoods, the higher and the lower neighborhoods.
Classic. It makes a fairly scattered settlement. Can we say it's a city, a town?
No, that wouldn't quite be right. We can't really call it a city because we found very few homes.
If this was not a city, what function did Choquequirao have in their empire? The excavation of these monumental buildings has allowed archaeologists to better understand. It's impressive, the lintels, the stonework.
You can see that at Choquequirao, the carved stones are reserved for the main entrances.
So if I follow you, we'll enter into a very particular spot. Before entering these immense buildings, you have to take a long, narrow corridor and pass through a second floor to finally access a central courtyard.
You see the rather narrow entrance and these 2 rings on either side were maybe for locking the door shut. In contrast to the large open space where we were, here, it's the opposite. It's a restricted place where only those with the right to enter could visit.
Through their research inside these buildings, scientists have unearthed architectural elements typically reserved for the Inca elite. There were floors of which only the edges remain. There are many openings onto the landscape and walls covered with ochre-colored plaster. The wall coverings are an additional indication of the great care they took in this architecture. If I put everything you're telling me together, I can't help thinking of Inca palaces like Machu Picchu. Does that seem right to you?
Absolutely. It seems to me that Choquequirao had the same function as Machu Picchu, meaning it was a palace which was part of a royal estate. Because as you know, each Inca ruler, when he assumed authority, had to build a new heritage. He had to conduct conquests and build new palaces.
It's different than with our own kings and queens. Our dynasties lived in the same palaces, but for the Incas, each king built his own palace.
That's exactly right.
But do we know which emperor founded this?
That's the big question. And what types of data can inform us? According to ethnohistory, we could assume this palace belonged to Tupac Yupanqui. But the architectural style is more closely linked to the palaces and sites typically associated with Pachacutec.
Pachacutec is considered the founder of the Inca Empire in the 15th century. He would be the first emperor, also called the Inca, to have undertaken a long series of conquests beyond the Cusco region, which were then continued by his successor, Tupac Yupanqui. In just a few decades, the Incas extended their empire from the current Peru to Bolivia, Ecuador, northern Chile, and northeast Argentina. It's in this context that the Inca may have founded palaces including the famous Machu Picchu, but also Choquequirao. But why such a radical geographical choice? Why build on this extremely steep mountain at over 5 days' walk from the capital? Thanks to this canal, archaeologists have come to realize that water was definitely a key factor.
Look, this is the canal's main artery.
It's beautiful work.
Especially since they captured the water at its source, 3,000 feet above.
This goes all the way up there?
Yes, it does. It's monumental.
By clearing away this canal yard after yard, they discovered that it spanned the entire site, from the bottom area to the top. It then continued into the mountainside to the source, the Yanacocha Glacier. This structure allowed the Incas to irrigate the whole site.
Water is the main force that gave vitality to the empire, because the number one issue for the agrarian Inca Empire was controlling water, the very source of fertility for the majority of the Andean mountains.
And all this under the control of the Inca himself, who ruled over this?
Yes, the Inca, as he was called, built this and landscaped it. He controlled the water, and he was the master of fertility. So this technology was at the service of the sacred.
The Incas worshipped these mountain sources. According to them, the glaciers, but also the rivers, and some rocks had a soul. They called them huacas. The choice of Choquequirao's site was therefore guided by the presence of this huaca, the Yanacocha Glacier. But not only that.
The Yanacocha is the most monumental figure since it's so high up and close. But if you look, we have a dozen glaciers, 360 degrees around us. You see there the 3 peaks of Vulukuchen? They're close too, even if there's no snow. There's the large mass of ice on Kitay. And there's Ampai to the south, hidden by clouds.
So we are literally surrounded by sacred mountains.
Yes, sacred mountain peaks, which are important figures in this landscape. And the Incas gave them even more significance by building this site here in their midst.
By choosing this location, the Inca surrounded himself with sacred huacas, with whom he had the privilege of communicating. For Thibaut, the presence of the Apurimac River was also a decisive factor.
Wow. Voilà. La vallée de la Purimac en...
That's the Apurimac Valley below. You see the river. You can hear it.
Yes, exactly.
The roar rises up from 5,000 feet below in the valley.
Another waka?
Yes, another huaca, because Apurimac represents the great Lord who speaks. Apurimac spoke to the Incas and delivered its oracles.
Little by little, the sacred geography of Choquequirao is revealed. Archaeologists now understand that the Inca selected this site with great care. It was a symbolic choice where his power was manifested. And to understand how, we have to get up very early. It's 5 a.m. and it's rather cold at this altitude, especially in June. And now I have a small 40-minute climb waiting for me. It'll warm me up. Hi, Thibaut.
Hi. Okay, let's go.
I'm right behind you.
We made it, Peter.
Super.
This is the great Choquequirao platform.
To build this platform, the emperor sliced off the top of a mountain. A masterpiece that has long puzzled archaeologists. Why undertake such a feat? What purpose did this platform serve? By observing the sunrise behind the mountains, archaeologists found an explanation.
There, we're almost blinded. Got your sunglasses?
Yes.
You see, the sun's come up over the horizon just to the right of the Yanacocha Glacier.
So we are aligned with this phenomena, you think?
We're certainly in a good place to observe it.
By modeling these movements of the sun, archaeologists have noted that during the summer solstice, the sun rises behind the Yanacocha, the Inca's sacred glacier, and it sets behind another sacred summit, the Kitai. At the winter solstice, on the other hand, the sun rises and sets in the axis of the Apurimac Valley, the great sacred river of Choquequirao. So the emperor chose this mountain according to the sun's path. So we're in a privileged position to observe this phenomena. The relationship with the sun is obvious, and the Inca was also the son of the sun, right?
We're in Choquequirao, the palace of the Inca. The Inca was a sacred ruler. He was a kind of mediator between the sacred figures of the landscape and his people, because the Inca had the power to speak to the huacas, to the sacred figures.
Can we imagine that important ceremonies happened up here in which the Inca was the main actor?
All the natural conditions were present. The platform is an excellent viewpoint. It's also a large space enclosed by a wall, a space of 16,000 square feet. So we can imagine many people gathered here to admire the Inca, who demonstrated his privileged relationship with the sacred.
With this platform, the Inca offers himself a giant stage. Recently, archaeologists discovered that the emperor had gone even further in his demonstration of his powers. Under the platform, on the mountain's western slope, they uncovered this vertiginous stone stairway of terraces. 19 terraces, suspended in the void, and beautifully decorated with mosaics of llamas. A sight never seen before in the Inca world.
These terraces are stunning.
No photograph can do justice to such a grandiose sight. I'm used to these kinds of sights, and yet here I'm blown away.
We're on one of the site's steepest slopes. That slope is about 60 degrees. And yet that didn't stop the Inca architects and masons from sculpting the whole mountainside, almost from the palace to the Apurimac, with this incredible system of terraces.
A total of 24 llamas, all different, are represented on these terraces.
Do you see the details of each llama?
I'm discovering them.
For example, this one has erect ears, which is an alert attitude for a llama, while that one's ears are back, a fearful attitude for a llama. Other llamas carry small packages. Can you see the small anthropomorphic figure all the way down there?
Oh, yes. Is it a shepherd? Or a llama priest?
Well, that's a possibility. A priest could be leading that group of llamas to the palace of Choquequirao. It looks like a real caravan, you see.
Indeed. Another French colleague, the archaeologist Patrice Lecoq, studied the layout of these motifs. He suggested they reproduced Inca weaving techniques. According to him, each terrace appears as a parallel strip on which llama motifs are reproduced, while the vertically arranged stones evoke the weft of a large fabric. Thanks to this discovery, scientists now understand the symbolic function of these murals. But why a textile?
Because textiles were the most valued and precious goods during Inca times. They were used during the festival ceremonies. They covered the huacas, the rocks, sacred objects, and temples. So why not here, on another scale, with a giant tunic on the mountainside, including the classic Inca iconography, associating the llama and the broken lines?
So not only is the Choquequirao site integrated in this sacred landscape, it also adds a sacred dimension to the area.
The Inca appear to have developed the sacred. They probably considered the mountain as a sacred figure, and so they dressed it with all the trimmings of a divinity. And don't forget where these llama mosaics are located. The Apurimac River. This llama caravan creates a connection, a kind of bridge between the two main poles of this geosymbolic site, the glacier and the river. So the llamas help close this loop.
With this set of mosaics, the emperor dresses this sacred mountain with a powerful symbolic coat. Because the llama is at the heart of an Inca founding myth, the Yacana. It materializes at night.
And here we are.
The sky is huge.
We're facing south. You see there the first two stars that just appeared? That's Alpha and Beta Centauri. They're the eyes of the famous llama constellation. So you have two eyes that connect the black cloud that makes his body.
The black mass is the llama's body, and the stars are the eyes.
Absolutely. And he had a very long neck that extended out.
The Yacana myth is described in a Quechua manuscript from the 17th century. It says that during the rainy season, the heavenly llama descends every night from the Milky Way to drink the water from the ocean and thus save mankind from the flood. So the Yacana, the celestial llama, appears in myths, in the sky, and then here on this site. It's a full integration.
In other words, they build, they write, they tell myths, and they include these myths in their architecture, into their landscape architecture. They integrate them into the local geography, the mountains, the river, and the stars.
Somehow, all of your long investigation, your research, is a way to penetrate into this ancient Inca mentality as far as you can.
It's mostly a way to explain, by using science, photogrammetry, and archaeology techniques, how we now understand the deep meaning their ancient culture attributed to the figures in nature that surrounded them.
Amazing Incas.
Yes, it's exciting. Very exciting.